The Nigerian Senate has approved the request of President Bola Tinubu to raise 1.15 trillion naira from the domestic debt market to cover the unfunded portion of the 2025 budget deficit. This comes after the adoption of a report by the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debt during plenary on Wednesday. According to the committee, the 2025 Appropriation Act provides for a total expenditure of 59.99 trillion naira, representing an increase of 5.25 trillion naira over the 54.75 trillion naira initially proposed by the executive. The expansion credited a total budget deficit of 14.10 trillion naira. Of this, 12.95 trillion naira had already been approved for borrowing, leaving an unfunded deficit of approximately 1.15 trillion naira. In a related development, a motion by Senator Abdul Ningi was adopted, directing the Senate Committee on Appropriations to intensify its oversight to ensure that the borrowed funds are properly implemented in the 2025 fiscal year and used strictly for their intended purposes. Recall that President Bola Tinubu had on November 4th requested the approval of the National Assembly for a fresh 1.15 trillion naira borrowing from the domestic debt market to help finance the deficit in the 2025 budget. We still have with us Delifani Moore, a veteran reporter, a public affairs analyst, and Obeimi Ogulami, who happens to be the coordinator of Take It Back movement in Koshofe here in Lagos. And we have Barrister Asim Adam join us virtually. Ali Usman also, who is a public affairs analyst, join us virtually from Abuja. And Archbishop Dr. Ibokun Gospel Bob Manuel, a public affairs analyst and former National Vice President, Institute of Strategic Movement of Nigeria, also join us from Port Harcourt virtually. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us. I would like to start off this conversation, with getting the opinion of Mr. Delifani Moore. What do you make of this sudden approval given by the Senate at this point for us to run a deficit of the 2025 budget? And in the words of the Minister of Finance, they say if we were to go on with this borrowing, that shows that debt will actually skyrocket to 190-something trillion naira. Do we need to borrow money at this point, given the fact that the NNPC and the House Committee in charge of them are yet to tell Nigerians what happened to 210 trillion naira that actually was accounted for? And this money is actually we're talking about was what they cannot account for from 2023, I beg your pardon, to 2025. And also, if you check customs, they've been able to, make up to 1 point something trillion naira, and the year is still running and all that. Please, let's get your opinion on this.
You see, let's start by understanding what budget is about. But budget, in a layman's language, is proposal of what I intend to spend, all things being equal. And the summary is what we get when the executive arm proposes to the Senate. And then further breakdown comes from the finance minister. It is not sacrosanct that the budget must be spent for that financial year. It depends on availability. It's like want and need. Want is insatiable, but you can manage needs. Now, for every of these kobo in this budget, there is appropriation. That's why MDAs appear before the Senate committees and House of Rep committees to explain their own budget, which is a micro part of the whole. Now, in running a budget, you can't take from sub-head A to finance sub-head B. So that is why the issue of customs making much money, cushioning the budget, federal revenue making much money, cushioning the budget. No. Now, let me say this. The 210 trillion you are talking about is an accumulation of guesswork based on unaudited account for many years. It didn't just start 23 to now. And it is still subject to further probe by the National Assembly. And we cannot wait until that probe is determined and those who are concerned are told to refund before we run a budget. Right. Now, when this budget came up last year, we were here when I said this budget is unrealistic.
I wanted to get to that point too, because not just you, even the World Bank, IMF also say that these actually happen to be more like
because the parameters set for this budget since January 1st have not been met, except for the height of Ukraine and Russian crisis that notched up oil price to about 75 for just about 2 days. And this budget was predicated on $75 to a barrel. But as we speak, it still hovers around 62, 64, sometimes 65, So that deficit is what we are borrowing to Kuchi.
Now, Nigeria run a zero-based budget to start with. And we also have the Fiscal Responsibility Act in place that made it this way that before any money will be borrowed, the government is to tell us how the other ones will be spent. Mr. Benjamin Ogulami, are we walking in the right trajectory with Nigerian government or executive arm going to legislative to say we want to borrow another money just for the 2025 budget deficit? Recall that we extended also the running of the budget of 2024. It's supposed to end in June, but they expanded or extended it to December 2025 without telling us actually what really happened or obeying what the Fiscal Responsibility Act said, and yet we're going out to borrow more. Is that actually in line with what we should be doing at this point and what the Constitution pointed out?
Over the years in Nigeria, when you want to, when the government prepares budget for another fiscal year, there's always analysis of how the money was spent, the proposals for the new year, and then the previous, perhaps a carryover from the previous year had to be stated. We haven't seen where our previous loans had been expended. We've not seen where a government will come up and tell us that the loan we got at so time was expended on so things. Now we're beginning to see, it's a usual thing, it's a recurrent thing in Nigeria that when a government is about to end its own term, you see them going for loans, oftentimes. Now it shows that these loans are not even for the poor masses, they're not even for the country. Because you're getting bogus loans and it's not reflecting in the life of your populace. What's the essence of it? So all these things we have is just the National Assembly and the executive arm of government, they are in collaboration. Actually, the Senate president has said it that whatever the president wants, he will grant, and he's granting.
Okay, he's granting. If you said that they are in collaboration, as at the time this budget was proposed in 2024, the capture that they were going to, the government said it, the executive said it, that we're going to borrow a certain 13.4 trillion naira, as deficit. So it is clear. So if the president has gone back now to the Senate to say, okay, we need 1.5 trillion naira to help us finance the 2025 budget, is that some form of collaboration?
The president we have now at this moment is someone that plans ahead, whatever he wants.
Okay.
So it's not something that is just coming overnight to get out. He planned ahead.
Okay.
And he also planned his own Senate president.
Okay.
Ordinarily, that Senate president shouldn't have been there because it's not even worth it. If you have the plan of a nation at heart, the good of the nation at heart, you shouldn't have.
I understand all of that.
Yeah.
Nigerians were told we have 13.4 trillion naira deficit in this budget. That is what we are going to borrow. Like Belly said here, it's income and expectations, income and expenditure. You
Yeah.
understand? And for the income, we are anticipating that we'll borrow 13.4 trillion naira. You know,
To be expended on what? Was it
to fund
explained?
the budget. The budget has several headings.
Is the
Ministry of
budget
Defense,
reflecting
Ministry
in
of-
our lives? Is it showing our economy? We only read paper oftentimes every year. We read papers, but these things are not reflecting in our lives. It's only showing in the pulse and the luxury of lives that the political class are living.
Okay.
Now, upon all these loans and budget, January will still come and the poor masses will still be taxed. They will still be ripped off their lives. This is not the kind of
I
country we
understand
want.
your position, but I want us to talk about what you said, collaboration.
Yeah, between the executive and the legislature.
So
Yes.
when the government said we were going to borrow a certain 13.3 billion naira to fund the budget, you know, trillion naira to fund the budget, Nigerians didn't raise eyebrows and all of that. So why should it be a
How
problem
many
now?
Nigerians are informed about this? How many Nigerians are we actually informed? And people that are informed, what are they saying?
No, the people that are informed, did they raise eyebrows?
How many people are informed in Nigeria? As
No,
in real
let's
people
say
that are really
let's say
informed.
that we have 5% that are informed.
That are informed.
As at the time the government said we are going to borrow 13.3 trillion naira, how many people kicked against it?
Even if the few that kick against it, kick against it, the others will shout. Your problem is too much. Nigeria hasn't gotten to that place where they need
Okay, so
to
you think that
question their
you think the
leadership.
Senate shouldn't approve this borrowing?
Our borrowing is too much in excess. And we are going into
Because
debt.
we want to use it
This
to fund
country
the
is
budget,
draining
like
every
pay
day.
salaries and all of that.
We have a lot of things to spend on since the advent of democracy, or since democracy came into Nigeria. What have we done? We are repairing roads. Has it reflected in our tech skill? Has it reflected in our military? Has it reflected in our education? And these are things people say every year. Education, hospitality, has it reflected? No.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ogulami, for your submission. Mr. Ali Usman, let's get your opinion on this. Initially, Nigeria's budget for 2025 was at 54.74 trillion naira. And then because of the fact that the likes of custom and FIRS generated more money, and also a projection that oil will be sold at $75 per barrel, we found a way to push this particular budget to 59.99 trillion naira. A part which even the people that will borrow money from the World Bank were of the opinion that this is more like, well, let's say an overkill. We're like stressing ourselves even when we don't have the strength to champion this. And then the government told Nigerians that we'll borrow a certain amount of money, 13 point something trillion naira for us to be able to push this up. And immediately that statement was made. Some people went in to calculate how much Nigeria will be owing, and they had a projection of 500 and something thousand naira being what an individual will owe in Nigeria. And now we are seeing 1.15 trillion to be another money, which the House of National Assembly already have, they've already signed it for the president to use to fund the deficit part of the 2025 budget. What do you have to say about this? And the fact that also the coordinating minister of economy told us that our debt ratio, our debt is at 109 something trillion naira. How does it make you feel as a Nigerian, even when some people will say we are not seeing this money, we're borrowing to consume, not even to produce?
I think that's where the problem is, borrowing to consume. Borrowing by itself, it's not a bad thing per se. All governments borrow. But what we do with what we borrow is where our attention should be. And secondly, we need to understand the role of National Assembly in this, particularly in this administration. This National Assembly has chosen to be a collaborative National Assembly and not an adversarial one. So to that extent, they would always grant the president's wishes. And my only concern is they do due diligence and ask all the right questions that Nigerians should ask. One important aspect also that we have left out is the place of civil societies. Now, you can say whatever you want to say about the National Assembly, but the president needs them, to get these things going. But what about civil society? Civil society end has been quiet. if government is borrowing and if other economic policies that are being put in place, for instance, the reforms that are ongoing, removal of subsidies and all of those things, we would expect that even if we had to borrow, we would not be depending so much on borrowing to fund budget.
Okay.
And this is the part where I think the civil society has not been doing much.
Okay, all right, Mr. Liu, we are coasting home. We are practically out of time. But before we leave, when you talk about civil society and collaboration between the executive and the legislature, I ask again the same question I asked Oyemi here in the studio. Last year, Nigerians were told that a certain 13.3 trillion naira will be borrowed. Deficit will be borrowed to fund the budget. At that point, the civil society organizations that you were talking about, nobody went to court. No Nigerian went to court to say, look, President, don't borrow this money. Now, the president has said, look, I need a certain 1.5 trillion naira to help me run the 2025 budget. And we're having problems with it. Why should we?
Yeah, you see, it's a part of the same thing I'm saying. We shouldn't be having problems, especially when you look at what this latest borrowing is, 1.1 trillion. Which is what is being borrowed. I don't think we should have problem. We should have to borrow that because of, like I've said, all of the reforms that the president has kick-started from day one. These are the very places, these are the reasons why we should be asking questions, because in the previous times, the last administrations, when they were borrowing, they would tell us we are maintaining subsidy, we are keeping this, we are keeping that, we are doing this, we are doing that. Now, those things have gone. I expect that, now, they are gone. I know that the country will still need to borrow in terms of the deficits, that whether it's in infrastructure or other services that we expect from government, government will still need to borrow, but not this much. When you look at the entire borrowing that has been done, it raises serious concern because I don't know, but all of these Bretton Woods institutions generally, I am not comfortable each time we have.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ali Usman. We need to borrow, but the question is, what do we borrow the money for, according to Mr.